Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Sanda Season 1, Episode 5. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we had that opening with Yagiura, who was talking with some of his fellow Saint Nick hunters. I forgot what their name are. The group that's after Santa, and they were having this conversation. Apparently there's a rumor around their organization about if Santa Claus, wasn't it like if he falls in love, I think they made it sound specifically with a child, but I guess it's in general that he will basically like have a cardiac kind of event, which is, I'm like, that's wild, because there was this conversation. I never got this vibe necessarily, at least. Maybe the Fuyumura Sanda Santa is kind of a complicated dynamic because of the whole thing of like they're both in this awkward position of being stuck as children but also adults, but being both while also being neither at the same time. It's a complicated thing, so it complicates their dynamic. So I heard conversations about the last episode about like Fuyumura's relationship with Sanda / Santa and how like that could be weird, but I mean, Sanda's trying to keep it professional because there is that part of him that's like, oh, I'm Santa, I can't cross that line, I can't cross that boundary. So there's that, but I'll get to that in a second. But I was wondering, like, this kind of playing off that notion too, but specifically referencing a child, but then later being like, oh, like, it seems like if he falls in love in general, the conversation comes up throughout the episode, like, he can't fall in love or get married, which I was like, oh, so, like, is Santa supposed to be kind of like a priest or a monk, where it's like your whole dedication is to your deity and nothing else? That's your first and only love. You can't give into carnal human desires, which also coincides with the society that they live in as well. So I don't know. But I also love that Yagiura is keeping that information to himself. I think I've referenced it previously of like, yeah, like supervillains in comics or superhero-related stuff, knowing who their antagonist really is, but keeping that information because it's like, oh, it makes this better. I mean, not just, for some villains, it's more of a game of like, oh, I find it more interesting. I don't want anyone to ruin our fun. But in his case, it's like, why would I share valuable information with anyone else? This is my gig. Because one of his coworkers is like, yo, I need this gig. Because he's like, getting a job in Japan is extremely hard. And why would, like, you know, and because of that, Yagiura's like, why would I give up vital information? It's like, I'm the only one that knows who Santa really is and as a kid. So then we cut to Sanda looking at one of his chubbier friend, and he's looking at his boobs, and he's like, oh my god, I feel nothing at all. I don't even get a tingle or whatever. And I guess after his interaction with Fuyumura, because someone had pointed out, like, oh, like the reason why he's kind of panicking a little bit, like he might have gotten hard. I did not read that situation to that. Maybe I missed something. But like, I guess he was testing that, or maybe he was feeling a little awkward, and he didn't know what to do, because Sanda is starting to develop feelings as Fuyumura, but then there's also, like, he says there's a layer of, like, immediate self-loathing because he's Santa and he views Fuyumura as a child, even though, like, as Sanda, him and Fuyumura are the same age, so it's okay for him to feel that way. But then because he's becoming more and more Santa, even if he's in his kid form, he's still thinking like Santa, and it's like, it's weird. And even he's like, it's weird and it's wrong because it's me taking advantage of, like, the children are the ones I'm supposed to look after and protect. So it creates this, like, conundrum within him that it's like, what's the reality of being torn between you as Sanda versus you as Santa, and those lines blurring more and more as time goes on. And then probably even the fear of I'm losing more of who I am as Sanda and becoming more and more Santa, in fact. Because he's talking to Amaya about it, and Amaya's like, oh, did something go on between you and Fuyumura? He's like, no, but he's also like, I don't even want to entertain the possibility of something could. And he's just like, I have to, like, he recognizes, like, I have to live a solitude life, which, I mean, I'm so interested to find out whether, like, where Mrs. Claus fit in all of this. And we're just going to make it so that in this continuity, there was never a Mrs. Claus, or has she been removed from the equation? Like, in regards of, like, is she such forgotten lore? Because not everything's known about Santa. So I'm wondering, is that part of it kind of forgotten? Or was Miss Santa just Mrs. Claus, I don't know how to say Miss Sanda, sorry. Miss Claus, was she just a regular human being that, like, that's one of Sanda's ancestors too, who's just a regular person? So I think once again, I don't know enough Santa lore, but I think I always just assumed Mrs. Claus was special too, but maybe she wasn't. Maybe she was just a regular person. I mean, I haven't watched the movies. I've only seen like maybe the first Santa Claus movie with Tim Allen, and that's so long ago, and I've seen bits and pieces, but not enough to fully know the lore of that universe and that canon, So I don't really know what to make of it, but I guess I just always assumed Mrs. Claus was like Santa Claus, but maybe that's not the case. So that's one I brought that up previously of being like, is that something this story will tackle, or is that just something they're just going to completely ignore? I mean, you never know because this show does a really good job of like slow dripping lore towards you. So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. Well, unless you've read the manga and knows exactly where the story goes, then you would have an answer to that. So once again, this is just rhetorical discussion, conversations. I don't actually want anyone to spoil anything and tell me the answer. I'm just like I said, I let you know my thought process and just what I'm thinking, and they're meant to be rhetorical, like theories and questions I'm kind of asking, in the long run. But also, Sanda got so caught up in all of this that he never really thought about like, oh yeah, there's also who, my good old fiance we got teased at the end of last episode, Nico, and he's like, oh yeah, I kind of completely forgot about her. But it's also because like her personality kind of like he clashes with that. She immediately walks up, oh, I'm supposed to be cleaning. I broke my broom. Oops, I don't have a broom. I guess I'll have to slack off. And she's she's a very interesting character, and especially like put her in. I think when you compare her to like any other character in her dynamic with Sanda, especially when you compare that to Fuyamura and Sanda's dynamic. But yeah, she seems a very free spirited person, and Sanda's like, right, I gotta talk to her. I gotta call off this marriage, even though it's like we don't really have much of a choice in it because it's state mandated. Because you're meant to, from a very young age, you're in an arranged marriage and you have to have children. I don't know. I'm curious to find out the selection process for why certain people get together. It'd be interesting if it turns out it's just like you just have. I was like, the chances can't just be like, oh, you were born on the same day or something. There's got to be some qualifier that makes them decide, okay, this person and this person pair. Not unless it's a complete like crapshoot of just like it's so super random. It's just like luck of the draw type of thing, or just pairing wise. But before he could really say anything, the typhoon's outside and it's raging, and she couldn't hear him when he was like, I can't marry you. And so the conversation immediately shifts to that because she's like, cool, let's go out there into the typhoon, which he's like, you're crazy. And she's like, well, that's what we're supposed to do. Like, we'll only become well-adjusted adults if we basically like go wild as kids, which I mean, it makes sense. I guess it's meant to be the thing of you get it all out of your system as a child. So you kind of like, that's the only time you can get away with it, especially considering in this society, kids will get away with a lot more than adults can in this universe. So it makes sense to run amok while you're a kid and then get it all out of your system, and then eventually you go into a responsible, well-adjusted adult. It's kind of the hope. So she's like, why not kind of throw caution to the wind in that frame? So bust open the door, guns out into the rain, and Sanda like following behind her. We also find out she's the only person that calls him by his first name. I don't know if like Kazi is actually his first name. That's probably just like a nick. Well, he did say first name because I'm like the subtitles say like Kazi, but maybe it's like Kazuhara or something like that. Might be like his full first name or something like that. And like his like short name would be like Kaz or Kazu, but like she calls him Kazi or Kazi. So, but either way, he trails after her and she hugs him and everything. And for her, she's like, oh, I might have misjudged you. The fact is you came out here to look for me. And she kind of seems to like really lean into like the drama and the romance of it because she thinks it makes it more fun and thrilling. And it's like seeing that he's willing to kind of be by your side having fun like this, in her mind it's like, oh, it makes you way more interesting than I gave you credit for. Because I guess she just kind of saw him from the outside and just kind of thought like, oh, they just brushed him off. But it's like, right. Because I don't think they tend to not really interact because it's like, well, we're engaged, and it's like that's all there is to it. We don't have any other commonalities. But I think this whole situation, because maybe post Santa, certain things about Sanda has kind of changed, and that's what she's kind of getting a feeling vibe for. But even he can't deny like being around her, because even to the point he's like, well, it's okay to be a, snot-nosed kid every once in a while. I don't have to like fully embrace. I might not be able to be with someone in the long run, so it's going to be a moot point, but at the end of the day, like, I could still enjoy it now. Like, I'm torn between being a kid and being, because he thought like there'd be no going back. Like, my normal life is over. I can never be a 14-year-old kid again. I'm always going to be Santa. But it's like, no, I can enjoy these little moments like this, and they're proof that I can still enjoy just being Sanda without having the baggage and complicated nature of being Santa as well. I can just kind of ignore that, even just for a little bit, a part of my life for now. And so she's throwing him notes with poop on it and stuff like that. But before it goes even further, we get introduced to Yagiuda, who's now the PE teacher. I was like, cool. So that was your way in. You're undercover as their teacher. It turns out that was it Oshibu gave him like less than a month. We even find out Oshibu's got like a 90-year-old heart in a container, like a casing. It's his heart because he got like an artificial one put in like 2 years ago. I'm like, why wait that long? I guess maybe he was like trying to hold on to his own ticker as long as possible, but why not get rid of it sooner? Maybe the technology only just got to a good enough place when he was 90 that would allow for this. But I love that he's like, cool, if you don't capture Santa before the Typhoon's up, which is believed to be a month, I'm going to take this 90-year-old heart and put it in your chest, and you're going to like rapidly age. You're going to feel what it's like to be a 90-year-old, which I'm like, that's such a weird and interesting punishment. That's some like next level evil scientist bullshit, which immediately it's like, oh, he has a deadline to catch Santa, which I'm like, oh, like the games that immediately jumped in my mind are like the Persona games. I guess I could say Atlas in general, considering Metaphor Refantasio also had deadline cutoffs to do certain things, but it's very Persona coded. I'm sure there are probably other games that have story beat deadlines like that as well, but like obviously my immediate thought is the Persona game. So knowing that he has a deadline of less than a month to make this happen, or that's going to be his punishment, going to be interesting. And so he has a talk with Sanda, and it's like, yeah, you know what this is going to be. And so basically, let's get to it. So Sanda puts on the jacket, transforming. Before they're about to fight, I was like, I thought like, oh, is she gonna Nico gonna walk in or something and find out about Sanda? Nope. The moment Yagi Uda punches him, Sanda turns back into a kid, and you're like, wait, what? And for even Sanda, he's like, what's going on? I'm wearing the red coat, and that's still not enough to transform me. It's like, and even I love Yagi Uda's like, oh man, I don't want to punch a kid. Turn back, which even Santa's like, motherfucker, you shot me at the end of episode 3. At the very least, even when he shot you the other times, you were Sanda at the time, so that makes it slightly better. It's like, no, his first shot at you was as Sanda, so it is kind of weird that he's thinking like, I guess it's like shooting you is one thing, but punching you is another, because it's a little up close and personal, and I kind of don't like being up close and personal, beating up on a kid. So now Sanda's struggling with what this means, because now it's like, is his powers fading as Santa? What was the cause of this? And I would almost wonder, is it because he knows he's not supposed to get married or fall in love, but I'm wondering, is that in correlation with everything? Like he's letting himself kind of be Sanda and feel what he's feeling towards Nico, that maybe that's interfering with his powers, because like it's coming in conflict with his nature as Santa, and it's fighting against, who he wants to be as Sanda, and that conflict is causing this disruption in the power. But then, like, I think even Yagi Uda brings up, like, it might also be a puberty thing, because you're in a very particular, interesting spot where, like, you are able to change into Santa, but at the same time, you're also getting older as a kid, and you're going to enter puberty and change as well. So maybe that is playing a role in all of this, Which I even love Yagi Uda's like, man, this is kind of crazy. I only came here as an undercover to, get close to this kid to capture him. But, like, now I'm actually feeling, I'm legitimately, in spite of myself, wanting to help him. I'm actually playing the role of an actual teacher. I love that. So at the same time, that's all going down. we have the Fuyumura and Nico confrontation where she's like, yo, stay away from my Sanda. And I love Nico just takes it with stride, being like, oh, here you are. Like, oh, you must have a thing for Sanda or whatever. But even Fuyumura's like, why did I say that? It's like, because she's feeling complicated about, I think after last episode too, like things for her have kind of shifted and she doesn't know quite how to feel about Sanda. And even Nico being like, oh, do you swing both ways? Because it's like, right, I figured the person you cared about most is Ono, but now apparently you have feelings for, and she calls him Gazi, and she's like, it's Sanda. And it's like, I even love her standing up, and it's like, and Nico's like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm intimidating. She's like, normally that would be enough just because of your height and stuff, but I love that she immediately turned it around on her, and I love the perspective, like, Fuyumura getting smaller and smaller, she's getting bigger and bigger, because she's like, all about it. She's like, right, eventually me and Sanda Gazi are like end game. It's just the end result. But until then, you could do whatever you want. I'm fine with it, because she's like, in fact, it means like the more jealousy that erupts from all of this means it makes our romantic story that much more spectacular. So I'm like, I think because this is even something she had said with Sanda, where it's like, people believe in stuff like they're thinking the typhoon might be caused by, Santa, they think of, or perceive him as God. And she's like, I don't believe that, because she's like, I don't believe in the more fantastical stuff, because reality is so much better than fantasy, so why would I? So it's just interesting, considering she also seems to have like a very highly fantasized notion of love, but considering what the kids know, it makes sense why they like fantasize, like have fantastical, like not just aspirations, but perspectives on like love and stuff like that, especially because of like the way the society is built. And so I just thought it was interesting where she was kind of giving, she's like, I can't really give you any advice on the Sanda front on how to like really approach this situation, but more so than anything, it was just kind of like giving her blessing in a lot of way. And like Fuyumura came into this trying to intimidate her, but it's like Nico just like flipped the entire script on her. I think that's just like her personality is just like that. Like she kind of gets her way and just kind of like, you're kind of like, came into this with a plan and it immediately fell apart. To be fair, Fuyumura was just kind of like flying by the seat of her pants. Really, she didn't really know. She was just kind of, her emotions were getting the best of her in this moment. But we really get some interesting insight from Fuyumura in this episode where we never really knew how much she struggled with her identity. Because she's like, she looks at Nico and Nico's shirt saying a plenty, and also it's around the chest area. And it's like, for her, it's like her voice, her figure, she's gonna like lean into and like grow into her feminine figure. But me, she's like, I have the very lanky, like I'm flat chested body type, and it's always been that way. So she's always struggled with, especially with her voice being low as well. It's like, am I a boy? Am I a girl? It's only when she was with Ono was the first time. It was never like, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, I'm able to just be Fuyumura through and through, nothing more, nothing less, and not get caught up in those like labels, and never knowing that she struggled with that so much. And that's also why she holds Ono so dearly to her, because you were the first person to make her feel okay about herself. And maybe Sanda's kind of entering that territory to some degree, because of all the Santa of it all too. Like, even though he views her as a girl, as Santa, is just, you're a child in his eyes, where it's like, and she'd even talked about that too, where she feels like she doesn't belong amongst the children because of her height, but also there's elements of her besides her height that make her feel like an adult. So she's kind of stuck in that perfect spot, especially at the point of like aging and stuff like that, and puberty and stuff. You're stuck in that in between even before now, and how you contend with that, it's all really interesting and fascinating. While she was washing some clothes, she gets visited by Ono, and Ono seems a little different. Even I was kind of like, am I tripping, or is she a little more bustier? It wasn't my imagination. And then she's kind of like making moves on Fuyumura about like, also like, why didn't you kiss me that last time we saw each other? She was almost trying to like kill Fuyumura. It's almost like, I never wanted to grow up and be an adult. So she's like, we basically, and kind of like what Oshibu was saying like last episode at Ono's like quote unquote funeral was about like, oh, you stay a child forever. It's almost like Ono's like, right, I want us to stay that way. She was kind of upset because she was like, I thought like you seem to have changed. He's like, oh, like, because Fuyumura's like, oh, let's don't be so rash. And it's like, wait, what? It's like, don't say something like that, Fuyumura. Like, I want you to stay the same, and yet you changed while I've been away from you. It's like, no, don't do that. Like, I don't want you to grow up. I wanted to stop that as much as possible. And we kind of find out a lot about the world. First and foremost, kids don't really sleep. And I think that's supposed to be the ironic switch in this world where it's like, right, as kids, you're supposed to sleep as much as possible because that will come back to bite you as an adult. But in this universe, like, they have vaccines at a very young age and certain dietary stuff that makes it so that sleeping is completely useless. They don't need to do it anymore. You're expected to just lay in your bed and sleep because sleeping is going to like get your hormones running, and then you're going to like get older and more mature than you need to be. You're meant to stay as childlike as possible and not grow up. Fuyumura being the first child she's ever seen sleeping, which I guess makes sense, probably doesn't have any siblings, and this is the first situation where you're probably like actively around other children, roommates and stuff like that. But she would watch her sleep all the time, and it's like it would be the loneliest time because it's like, because you choose to sleep even though we're not meant to, but you enjoy sleeping. It's kind of the fear of you're going to grow older, especially because that's around that time, sleeping so much, her hair started growing, so it just led to her feeling more and more like, hey, you're slipping further and further away from me, and you're going to move away from me, and I don't want that. I want us to stay together. In fact, I want you to stay out with me because we could talk all night, but you choose to sleep, which is like, also, you're not supposed to, and you can get in trouble for that. But Fuyumura's like, no, I enjoy sleeping. It's really good, so you don't have to worry about it. Everything's fine. I was already a very tall person, so for her it's like she didn't feel like there was any worry about like any massive changes to herself, which is ironic considering like Fuyumura isn't the one that changed the most. She's actually changed the least. It's actually Ono who changed the most, because she was kind of hoping like everything would stay the same. She comments on something I didn't notice until episode 3, was the whole girls also wear this exact same uniform as boys. And it's one of the reasons I kind of guessed that it meant to be like this gender neutrality, because it's not meant to like recognize, they're not the opposite. They're not supposed to recognize the opposite sex. It's kind of like the whole point, or like you want to keep everything as like platonic as possible. That's why like there, the whole thing was that last episode about like, oh, like, there's no sexual education, obviously. And it's all like, Ono had to sneak that book for her and Fuyumura to see like, statues, genitalia and stuff like that. So. And then there was that situation with Ono and Fuyumura. And the moment that started happening, I was like, hey, yo. I was like, there's no way we're doing this, right? And I'm like, this is a very, like, I don't know. It's one of those uncomfortable things, like, as an older person, it feels, and I guess that also puts you in this interesting mindset, because as an older viewer watching this, you feel a lot like Sanda does as Santa, where you're just like, I feel uncomfortable that I'm watching like actual kids potentially like make out and do all that stuff. I'm like, oh, it's cute, but it's also like it's entering like sexual territory that kind of makes me super uncomfortable. And so then you're like, okay, I was like, it's gotta be a dream, right? Because like Fuyumura pulled away from her with like the kiss, and he's like, yeah, she had an erotic dream. And the moment she woke up, like Ono had bigger boobs, like it had kind of, I was like, there's no way it's like, I mean, this is a fictitious world, probably like the hormones in their body, like, because probably like, I guess you could make some argument there's been such a build up because of the lack of sleep and stuff, and just everything kind of hit her at once while she was sleeping. Maybe it's like just like the body's natural countering to what the diet and vaccines do to their body. So maybe there's some correlation there. Maybe it's also like, She not justified, but suggests like it's because it's the culmination of all her sins. I think up until this point, her feelings and kind of breaking like the mold of like everything they're not supposed to do at this academy. Her inquisitive nature, her feelings developing for Fuyumura. So she kind of puts it on herself like, this is my own fault that this happened. But like I said, I wonder whether the change is so incremental, like so small that she never recognized it and it seemed like it hit all at once, or was it, like I said, it just like maybe it's almost like everything in her system kind of like kicked into overdrive when she finally fell into like a deep sleep, and just everything's hitting her and like activating her hormones into overdrive, and that led to everything. I mean, maybe the argument is like she was already on the cusp, and like I said, it just like hit her all at once. But it turns out that's why she ran away. Not necessarily because anyone did anything to her, because her body just naturally changed. And you're not supposed to develop and go into puberty until after you graduate. It's like anyone that does that before graduating, it's unthinkable. So they will be dealt with. So that's why she ran. So the fact is she kind of exposed herself now, because I guess she was trying to, like, she couldn't, I guess seeing Fuyumura again a couple of episodes ago just made her go like, I try to keep away. Or maybe she's probably always kept an eye on Fuyumura. She probably has snuck in every time she's going to sleep or something to keep an eye on her. So that might be when maybe it just like it got too much and she had to wait to the perfect opportunity for her to be alone, and maybe like her desire for Fuyumura took over so much that she couldn't keep away anymore. But now they're in trouble because Oshibu shows up, especially because Fuyumura says the line of "it's okay to grow up," because of the whole Sanda Santa thing made her realize, like, it's like, right, being a grown up isn't such a bad thing, even though the school and the society will kind of make you think that it is. So some very, very interesting developments. I'm excited to see where all this takes us next episode. I should also note, I'm really liking I already liked the opening and ending, but when you listen to it enough, I'm not the type of person that skips opening or endings. I usually let them play out, even if it's a song I don't really like. Even if I'm like okay on the song or lukewarm, I will still just let it play out. You always notice things more and more as stuff play out. Like the Don to Don intro, it's like, oh, you see more and more of like, oh, that's this, and this. Like so much of the plot's laid out in front of you, you just never realize. Situations like that, for example, but I really like those songs. I'm excited to go listen to the full versions. I haven't listened to the full versions of those songs yet, especially the opening. Like there's something like very catchy and nice about the opening, but I really like the ending as well. So I just wanted to kind of tack that on, a couple episodes in. So, but yeah, like I said, excited to see where all of this end up taking us going forward. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about today. So be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.